Hello, welcome ladies and gentlemen. We are back today with another Cello 101. Today we're going to run through Lightly Row. Let's go ahead and start by making sure that our bows are nice and tight. I have warmed up a little bit today before this, so my bows are already up and running. Let's go ahead and double check our tuning. Used to, honestly, I didn't have one of these little clip-on mics. I super have enjoyed having mine, except for the fact that occasionally the cord will rattle against my top and it gives it a buzzing sound. But other than that, it's great. Groovy. So, let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and leave my tuner on, and I also recommend that you do for practicing scales, just because it is going to make it a bit easier to make sure that your fingerings are actually in tune and develop the tone, develop the ear to hear what's going on in terms of the scale, so that you can start getting the correct patterns in your head. So let's go ahead and run a G major scale. No, I'm sorry, a D major scale. We're running a D major scale. So let us go ahead and start on the open D, which is going to be our second string, and we will go from there. So just a simple one note per beat, and then we'll run up and down the scale. So 1, 2, 3. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. 1, 2, 3. So this time when we run through it, we're actually going to run a pattern. Instead of just straight up and straight down, it will be 1, 2, 3, and let me show you. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So. There's a bunch of different ways that you can practice scales, and honestly, initially, I absolutely detested practicing scales. Absolutely detested them, because I didn't see the point. I didn't see, I wanted to play music, I didn't want to play scales. Through college and through playing in a professional orchestra and such, I've come to the realization that scales are truly what music is based off of, but you have to have music in your ear, in your head first, before you can really get into scales. And so a big thing that took me a long time to learn was how to make scales fun and interesting. And even when I know that I'm playing scales, I can still work on, with the tuner. It took me a while to add in a tuner to make sure that I'm hitting those notes as accurately as possible. Patterns and repetition is definitely something that has also helped me make that more palatable, I guess. So just playing the straight, and then the is a good way to work on that and add some variety into getting into the headspace of where you're going to be playing, getting into the headspace of what key you're going to be in, and really solidifying where you are and what you're doing. Um, so from there, let's go ahead and take a look at the third song here, Lightly Row, and then from there, I will go ahead and play it once, and then the second time I'll go ahead and have you join me, and then we can take a look at some trouble spots and kind of figure out what's going on. So, 1, 2, 3. So with that, let's go ahead and just play through it once, kind of bash our way through, and then we can go through and look at some of the notes, some of the things that they're wanting us to take a look at and keep in mind as we play this. So, keeping the same tempo, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's take a look at this and kind of break it down just a little bit. Again, from earlier lessons and kind of looking at things, we've got a couple different phrases. And then we've got the second chunk. We have a repetition. The only real difference is instead of playing a half note, we're playing every beat. So the second iteration, or the first chunk with a slight twist to it is, and then we have a slightly different second ending. Then we move into another section. Then the same section repeated, up a step. Then we have the first chunk again. And then the first ending again, I guess. The things to keep in mind here, we do have a couple of bowings at the beginning of measure 1, the beginning of the second line, and the beginning of the third line. We are running mezzo forte, which is that MF underneath the first A of the song. Mezzo forte is medium loud. So you have forte, loud, you have piano, soft. You have mezzo forte, medium loud, you have mezzo piano, medium soft. So there's different shorthand that they can use to kind of tell you where in your volume range you should be looking to play this one. And this one's just, it's a happy, bouncy folk song that was designed to be danced to. So yeah, you need it kind of loud, because if you're... nobody's going to be able to hear you over the sound of stomping feet. The other thing to keep in mind is measure 5, 6, 7. There is a note underneath that F sharp to keep the third finger down. One common thing, especially among beginner players, is to have very exaggerated finger movements when they're playing, because they're concentrating. They're concentrating on the music, they're concentrating on the bow, they're concentrating on getting a good sound. There's so many things to keep track And so with just measure 7, if you completely take your hand off and it's farther away, it's going to be really hard to reset to get back in there. And you can keep it right above the string. The biggest thing to keep in mind is to make sure that when you're playing, you're not hitting 2 strings, because having one finger down on, like the D, for example, on an F sharp, and then accidentally hitting the A is a horrible noise. The other side is when you're doing a string crossing, like from the F sharp to the A, you can kind of do the same thing, but it'll squeak. It'll have a really bad sound to it, because it's basically making a partial false harmonic. But that's beyond the scope of this particular lesson. So just keep in mind that you want to keep your fingers down for ease of playing and ease of moving through a passage quickly. You don't want to come all the way off. You want to stay nice and close to the string, but not necessarily touching. And that particular keep the third finger down is repeated in measure 10 through 11 into 12, and then the last 2 measures of the song as well. So let's go ahead and start the first entire phrase in this. So that'll be the first 2 lines, measure 1 through 8. Keeping the same tempo, 1, 2, 3. So that is one complete phrase. If you pay close attention, one of the things that I have to consciously stop myself from doing is vibrato, which is something that I picked up after playing for a while. But even without using vibrato as adding interest, adding variation, adding excitement, and ornamentation, I guess is a good word, is the only one that I can come up with off of the top of my head. You can still use your dynamics to lend interest and inertia to the phrase, because doesn't have the same kind of feel and the expectation to go on and develop the song as it is still, even at the end there was that I really wanted to run vibrato. So look at the entire phrase, see how things sound, and then figure out how you can make nice long arches, nice long curves to the music, through variation and in bow pressure, bow speed, and volume, to help move the song along. Let's go ahead and play that second section, or the second half of the song, so measure 9 through the end, and then we can put everything together, do a little bit more research into the next piece before we start it, and then from there we can move on, once we put everything together in here. So measure 9, same tempo, and go ahead and join me. So 1, 2, 3. one thing that you might notice if you pay attention to my hand is those last two measures, my hand didn't move. I still have that third finger down on the D string for that F sharp. I still have my third finger down, and I just make sure that it's moved out of the way enough so that I don't hit the A while I'm trying to play the open A. And that will help. That'll help the sustain on the instrument, because you're not actively moving it, and you still get a bit of sympathetic vibration through there. So let's go ahead and play the entire thing through, and then we can move on to the next one and go from there. So same tempo, 1, 2, 3. So, with that, I'm going to throw my pencil on the floor. I'm also going to turn off my tuner and then loosen my bow, and I have yet to go track down a rosin rag, because I have forgotten that yet again. So make sure that you wipe off your strings with a nice clean rag. You can go in between the strings and wipe off the fingerboard itself. Again, don't touch down here with your bare hands, because you want to keep your oils off of this, because you want to keep your oils off the horsehair there. And with that, go forth and practice. Thank you very much, and I will catch you again soon.